Hello, everybody. My name is Stelianos Kanalaktos from the New York Council on Problem Gambling. I'm very excited to introduce Karen Halati from the Gambling Support from British Columbia. She's going to do the mobile sports betting booster, which is part of the New York State OASAS Prevention Provider Problem and Underage Gambling Training. So thank you very much, Karen, and please take it away.
Thank you, Stelianos, and thank you for the invite. My goodness, I hope the title of this training isn't on a business card, because that was a mouthful. Again, thank you for the opportunity. And I have to say, this was a lot of fun to put together. I had a good time putting this training together, and I hope it's useful for folks. And if it's not, you can let me know. And if it is, you can let me know, but I'm not review based. I'm over 50, so don't really count on those things. So welcome to mobile sports betting, the new normal. Is it? Well, probably. By the looks of it, it's looking like it's the way it's going to be. So let me introduce myself. I'd like to welcome everybody to begin with. I'm originally a girl from Montreal, so I'm a bit of a neighbor and have spent a fair amount of time in New York State. And now I find myself in British Columbia, Canada, in a location called Vancouver Island. I'm responsible for prevention services under VI Gaming Support in contract with Gambling Support BC, which is the department in our province that looks after all care with regards to gambling support services. And what's really important to me is I've put on this slide that this presentation and this work in general has been inspired by two really key people. One is Julie Hines, who I adore. And the other fellow, Dan Trelaro, I've had the privilege of having a few trainings with him, and he is by far the expert on this topic. And I want to thank them both for inspiring me and helping me do my best to try and do my best for you folks, and hopefully that this is worth your while. So there's a few things to cover. Most of it, because this is a booster, I'm not going to belabor because it's a booster, and I'm really going to be honing in and focusing in on the youth aspect of it's those constructs around the in-play sports betting that's the most important. So before I move on, sports betting and emerging trends. Language matters. Sports betting is gambling. Depending on who you're having a conversation with, I have been informed that sports betting is not gambling by people who bet on sports. So we've had some very interesting conversations about that. And as we all know, this is a booster, folks, that we know that gambling can be addictive, because if that wasn't the case, we wouldn't be here. So why youth are at greater risk? As most of us do work with youth, we understand brain development, we understand limited life experience, and we understand the vulnerability that media places on all of us. Because if we're vulnerable as adults, youth are even that much more vulnerable to being prey to the business large industries that are looking to come in and get some dollars. And of course, this is a prevention training, so we'll do a quick view of prevention goals, because I like to know what I'm doing and why, and some actions that we can take. Now, this is a menu, not a to-do list, because you'll see when we go through it at the end, there's a lot of things to do, but one person can't do it all. That's the most important thing I can underscore, is this is a team effort all around. So betting on sports, anybody who plays on a team, any sport, you all know that we all have our role to play when we play sports. And if we try and do someone else's job, we leave a vulnerability, and usually our goalkeeper's angry at us. So it's a team effort all the way, and every little bit matters. So emerging trends in sports betting. This image struck me because it's no longer sitting with our friends watching the game. This is a much more common feature than we used to see as people have their sports betting apps out during a game. So what is sports betting? I looked at a whole bunch of definitions. I went with the simplest one because we could have made this as complicated or as simple as possible. So it's essentially activity of predicting sports results or placing a wager on the outcome. That's the big picture. But in today's day with mobile sports betting app, We have prop betting that's included. We have non-athletic events. So most of you are familiar with esports. So that's the tournaments of gaming tournaments, and that people are betting on those too. And those are also available on sports betting apps. Because I ran a little bit, well, not an official focus group, but I work with the public a lot with prevention, as most of you do too. So I do a fair amount of unofficial, anecdotal focus groups. So when I ask people, oh, hey, do you use sports betting app products? Usually friends are busy teasing each other and they're outing each other. Oh, it's him, man. I'm like, no, it's fine. I want to know what product you use and why you use it, because there are thousands of apps out there. So which ones do you like and why? And that feedback is super important. And that leads into these characteristics here around in-play betting and specifically cash out features. And we're going to go through that in a fair amount of detail. But those are large pieces that were important to people as to why they selected this app over that app. And I'll get to another point later. I hope I don't forget it, but I guess we'll find out. Let's start with the big picture. Trends in sports betting. I'm older. Things have changed from when I used to bet on sports. It's no longer getting a bunch of people together in a boardroom with spreadsheets of players and statistics and doing a good old-fashioned draft for the season. The older folks in this training will get a chuckle and remember those days. The kids would laugh at us right now and be like, what are you doing? You're wasting your time. That's ridiculous. But that's what we did, and that's how it went. Well, now, online's on the scene, and that wasn't on the scene during my day. And many states have legalized online gambling. I'm not sure what the latest statistic is. I think it's about 30 out of 50 states, but it's so many states are legalizing so quickly that it's hard to actually keep up to the latest as of this day. And up here is your cousins north of the 49. 1 year and 3 days ago, nationally, online sports betting was legalized in Canada. And the way things work on our side of the border is then the provinces are responsible for regulating. So the country legalized, and then the provinces, the 10 provinces and 3 territories, are responsible for how that service is regulated and delivered. So it's a little bit different, I think, for how things work with our cousins in the South. Trends in sports betting, micro betting. In-play betting is probably that and cash out are the largest key features in mobile sports betting that are completely different than taking your 3 picks on your parlay with an over-under for the weekend. It is a different game altogether. The pressure of last-minute betting and shifting odds, right? So you're always hooked, you're always in, you can't turn away for a moment. It reminds me a little bit of when I'd ask people on the professional poker circuit that quit, and I've been told, yeah, I used to play poker professionally. Okay, I quit. Okay, they're still fairly young, they're in their 30s, and I'll be like, well, can you tell me why you quit? If you were successful at it and enjoyed it. And across the board, the response I got was exhaustion, because once you were locked in, you couldn't step away, because then you'd have to start your count again. You'd have to do a whole new people at the table. So the trend here that you can't step away because you never know when something's going to shift, you're hooked, your attention is locked in completely. Sideshow Bob here, prop betting on things that have nothing to do with the game. I've heard some crazy things. How long is the national anthem going to go? What color tie is the coach going to wear in the first round of the playoffs? What colored Gatorade are they going to dump when they win? Like, this has nothing, zero to do with the game, but that's also part of it. And one fellow, maybe 2 weeks ago, said to me that that was an attractive part for him of why he enjoyed it, because it was kind of like almost having a side bet on the side to the main bet, because that main bet wasn't apparently catching his attention enough. So the consumer user feedback has been fascinating for the people who choose to use these products. Technology. So for the gamers in the room, you know, like whether you're looking at 2K, NHL, the FIFA series, the it is so real. The characters now, this isn't like my old Mario, or like the characters, the people, the players, they wear the bodysuits, there's trackers and everything. The nanosecond and the incredible amount of aggregate data isn't just used to create video games, but it's also the backbone for the AI for the sports betting apps. Because I'm going to take a guess that everyone gets a cut. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, but my hunch is that probably there's incentives for all the participants. Mentioned esports before. Yeah, people bet on League of Legends. People have Twitch followers. That's a whole other training for a whole other day about how that's being promoted on Twitch. But that is integrated because you're looking generally at the same demographic. So these are users of multiple products, and this is one of them. So there is a convergence, there's blurred lines, there's integration for sure. And AI sports forecasting, selling winning picks. Just let that sink in for a second. Artificial intelligence is forecasting you the winning pick. I'm just going to let that sit and let you process that on your own. I find it a little disturbing. Moving on to the framework, the structural characteristics. What is it about mobile sports betting that makes it so appealing? That is what differentiates it, I think, from whether you're doing an office pool or a draft or just plain old, $5 between friends over a Sunday and watching the game. Well, the two big pieces are the micro betting and the in-play betting. I'm going to be repeating this ad nauseum because you've heard the rest of it. This is just a booster, but the booster is really focused on these are the big sell pieces. Cash out feature. I'm going to go on and on and on about this later in the training. And if there's anybody taking this training that's maybe familiar with stock market activity or day trading, you may recognize some familiar language in how these products are being presented to the consumer base. So let's go to in-play sports betting. Bet now. How is it that it can be a little bit more harmful than other forms of betting? That illusion of control and looking at betting patterns. People are locked in. And when your brain doesn't have an opportunity to step out, check out, take a breath and reflect, you don't get a break. So you're locked into this pattern of the next one, the next one, the next one. The sheer volume of bets in comparison to a single bet outcome. You can have 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 15, as many bets as you want during a game versus win, lose, or draw. It's kind of comparing to season-long fantasy sports to daily fantasy sports. The requirement of being actively paying attention. You cannot split your attention to do something else because you're going to miss something, right? Fear of missing out. Oh my God. Act now, limited time only, must do now. That type of pressure, particularly for young people, makes them very vulnerable. Sometimes when we're older, we've had so much FOMO thrown at us over the decades that we just like, yeah, whatever. But for young people, they're really new at this level of pressure. At the same time, they're seasoned and they're growing up in this. So I have faith that our youth, because they're being asked to punch above your weight, so to speak, they're asked to be better digital literacy citizens. They're being asked to make the types of decisions that back in our day we were 5 and 10 years older to make. My hope is that it's also going to integrate and help them be able to be stronger and make better decisions. This first guinea pig generation might be taking a hit, but hopefully the ones after are going to do okay. That's that piece. I'm going to go general here, but I'm going to be really short and sweet about it because obviously it's a booster. What is gambling? You may have seen in a dozen presentations so far. So we're not going to spend too much time on it, but the essentials, the trifecta: prize, chance, and consideration, right? Regardless of what. So when someone tells me that sports betting isn't gambling, I'm like, was there a prize? Is it based on chance? Oh yeah, but no, 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 no. Oh yeah, but in your skill in your system. And is there any money involved? Are you putting anything in? And it's not always money. So small little anecdote. I'm a hockey person, very stereotypical of being a Canadian, originally from Montreal. I come by it honestly. Yes, it's been a rough year for people who are taking this year, but we'll do better next year. So an example of a bet that is not, I don't know if you guys do this down in the States, so I'll have to get some feedback from Stelianos after. But what's not uncommon is, let's say during the playoffs, hockey, you have some rival teams that are playing each other. So classic Boston, Montreal, right? Good old bloodbath since the 70s. They've hated each other, original 16, 100 years of hatred. So it's not uncommon for the mayors of the city to bet a losing mayor wears the jersey of the winning team. I don't know that the mayor of Boston wants to wear a Montreal jersey, because the mayor of Montreal sure doesn't want to wear a Boston jersey. So the consideration here is ego. It doesn't even have to be money. That hurts. That is consideration. And for the gamers, you know that, because that consideration in your guilds and your leaderboards and that whole piece of what life is like online is legitimate. So that really translates quite easily into the sports betting world. Again, simple definitions about risking something of value on chance and hoping to win a prize. Something of value could be my pride and my belief on my team. In sports betting, that gets monetized. My pride and belief on my team gets honed into, well, put your money where your mouth is. And then when you're betting so quickly on a skill-based game, because, all right, I've got my stats, I know my guys, and he's been on a streak, and we know how easy this can go. Now, this piece I like to chat with folks. It's the .net.com. So if ever you're having some trivia with your friends, this is a great one, because not everyone knows the distinction. So for those of you that do see the sports app advertising, my God, that's a mouthful, on TV, whether you're watching football or baseball, you see it in the background, like you see it everywhere. You get a lot of advertisements for .net sites because they do not use money. They are free to play sites. They're tutorials. They show you how to play. They introduce you to, this is how you do this. This is how, this is why, this is how it works. So because there's no money and because it's not gambling, underage players tend to find their way in there. Because it's not gambling and it's free to play, you can maybe not always have the accurate odds. Are they regulated? If they're not regulated and there's thousands of apps out there, how do we know who's legit and who's not? That takes, I mean, obviously you have Google reviews and people talk to each other, and that's how you find these things out about what's a better site versus other sites. But there's a vulnerability. And I have yet to find a site that I'm not one click away to the .com sister site. And that's the pay site. Enter your credit card number here. That's the difference. So I have a question for Stelianos that's specific to New York, because I lose my data between the different states and the provinces. In New York State, is there only one legal regulating gambling site in New York?
No, there are multiple sites that are regulated by New York.
So they do licensing agreements with a lot of the providers?
Yep, there are different operators that have licenses with New York State.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. Because again, things are different state to state, which is odd because we're in a global world. Same thing with Canada, but each state and province has its own peculiarities of how it wants to regulate these things. So then when we're looking at the .com sites, as we pointed out, there are thousands. There are thousands of them. Many of them are offshore. Yes, a number of them are legal and a number of them are legitimate and well run, but a number of them are not. And I've heard some pretty funky stories around when to cash out, how to cash out, if they can cash out. They have to, one person told me they had to make 10 times their winnings in order to cash out. Another person told me, I don't remember what site it was, that it was credit only. So so it's doing your research. And who says everyone's humans playing, right? The AI factor, the bots, and how the collusion can happen. Because all these sites are always a business for the operator. It's a money making business. And when we're brought in for free, for example, on the .net sites, to remember, if we're doing something for free, we're the product. Our data, our information is being sold. Just as a reminder, oh, I got this for free, I was able to download it. Well, you just sold your house, your soul, and everything else. You'll notice by all the Google ads you get after, by what they actually got on you through going through your data. It's mind-blowing. So if there's risk for everyone, but why are our younger folks even more vulnerable than the older folks? And I really liked when I saw this image, it spoke to me. Really nice artwork. I'll try and find out who the artist is, but it really, really spoke to me in terms of why we're at risk when we're younger. Bless the brain, it doesn't show up ready to go out of day one when we're a baby. It takes approximately 25 years to get to the point where we can use our executive functions. So our executive functions are stationed in our prefrontal cortex. This is the more dry part, so I'll try and go through it and make it the least boring possible. But the long and the short of it is it takes time. It's like this, MRI scans, images before the functionality and everything of the neurotransmitters being put together and the wiring of the chemicals in our brain around our prefrontal cortex and how it grows. So between age 20 and 25, usually by 25, we're kind of set and ready to go for the next 50 plus years. But up until that time, we struggle with emotional regulation, decision-making, problem solving, planning, reasoning, and empathy. Well, the top three, the top two, the top four have a large part to play in the sports betting world and in the impulsivity of mobile sports betting apps. So when we take a look that if it's in our 20s, young people go to college between, 18 and 24, something like that, depending on the school, whether they go to college or university, leave home for the first time in a lot of cases, have the stress of having responsibilities for the first time in a lot of cases. And there's a lot of crash and burn in the first semester, and the failure to launch syndrome, and the gamers go down their own rabbit hole. But the culture of sports betting on campus is huge. It is huge. Look at any of the NCAA and you take a look, especially in the fall and football, a lot of those crowds draw more people than NFL. So it is a large part and parcel of the experience when we're at an age where we're being asked to up our game and adult up with so many pressures that people are going to want to escape. And whether they drink, drug, gamble, whatnot, that part of the pressure is definitely on. And it's legitimate. There's no people blaming here because we're pretty much 90% chemistry. And there's 4 classes of brain chemicals that drive how we go through life. So endorphins, right? That urge, that intense desire. I can probably relate to sugar. A lot of people can relate to sugar, but this also moves to behaviors. It's not only substances. And that's where we're better than we were 10 years ago, because most people get that now. And we can tell it in behaviors, just taking a look. Go in any school and watch people on their phones. And I say people, not just kids. What is the first thing the teachers do when the bell rings too? So there's a vulnerability there that we're all there. I never pronounce this right, norepinephrine. Ooh, I can't stop thinking about it. I'm obsessed during that loop, right? The little gerbils in your mind and just can't disengage. And serotonin, feel good. I can't stop myself. That impulse control. Who doesn't want that nice wash over feel good? And the winner chicken dinner, dopamine. This is the industry's bread and butter. For gambling, you know it, I know it. So mobile sports betting, in-play betting, the dopamine, that hit, that rush, that reinforcement happening at a frequency faster than I drive. Not that I'm admitting to anything about any of those behaviors. So cognitive distortions. I'm trying to make this the least boring possible. Thanks for hanging in there. It's necessary to include this. It's just kind of dry. These are things we do all the time, particularly within the betting world. So get yourself in your sports betting place. You've got your app open. The near miss, the industry's bread and butter. The near miss and dopamine go hand in hand like peanut butter and jam. Magical thinking, I got a system, I got this, and if I do this and I offset it that, here we go, right? Selective recall, remembering how much we won. Oh, did I spend that much? No, I don't remember how much I spent, right? Chasing losses, chasing wins. We don't talk a lot about chasing wins, but I would throw that in there because that microsecond before you win or lose, that's the spot that gets us. If you lose, you want to go get it back. If you win, you want to win again. So it's not always about the win. That's a short-lived pleasure. And what we attribute to the win and the systems we have in place and our influence and superstitions, like if, I don't wear red on, the goalie's only going to wear purple, or I'm only going to wrap my stick from left to right. And like, there's all kinds, bless sports people. We've got all kinds of interesting little things that keep us going. But as long as we know that it's humor and it actually has, whether you taped your stick left to right or right to left, is really not going to change your performance. But we're great at cognitive distortions. And this is another list of a host of them. I could go on and on and on. Catch me in a Psych 11 class, catch me in a psych class in college, and we'll go in a lot deeper detail around distortions. We're all familiar with the gambler's fallacy, that near miss, again, the bread and butter of the gambling industry, looking for patterns where none exist. That's the human condition. Before we had civilization as we knew it, that's what kept us alive. Knowing the patterns of nature, the patterns of the animals, the patterns of things, that's what kept the difference between being alive and being dead. Past performance being indicative of present and future performance. Everything is independent. Everything is independent. And that's why when you get the big win in sports betting, it's because the underdog came through. Right? Let's remember the big win is the underdog. So if that past performance has nothing to do with what happened that day. The illusion of control. I love skill-based games. We think we can influence everything. Yes, we can bring something to the table, but my experience, whether it's cards, sports betting, any of it, is Lady Luck likes to have the last word. And if we think we're smarter than Lady Luck, at some point, she will remind us that she likes to have the last word. So maybe keep a little Lady Luck sticker on your phone if you need to remember that this really is luck and chance. And always overestimating our influence on things. Bless humans. We're great at that. Let me take a little bit of water, folks. Thank you for your patience. Exactly. What is addiction? Well, one of my favorite experts on addiction. I don't know how familiar you folks are in the States with him, but Dr. Gabor Mate, he was a physician on the downtown east side in Vancouver. He worked a good dozen years out of the Portland Hotel Society, working with the homeless, the most deeply entrenched, vulnerable people on the face of the earth. So he is a foregone expert on addiction. If you want to go deeper on that, go to his website. He's got a book in the realm of the hungry ghost. Absolutely brilliant work. So he's going to attribute 3 key points to addiction. Craving, whether it's a behavior or a substance. Pleasure seeking, or even more important, temporary pain relief, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, doesn't matter. And when I work with young people, because sometimes people that get judgy around addiction thinks it's all about pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. The reality is, more often than not, it's about the relief of some kind of pain. That's what drives us. And the inability to stop that, even if we have negative consequences. Our partners have left, we've lost our job, but we still continue. And what needs to be understood here is addiction is an attempt at solving a problem. Not the best choice, but a very natural one, and one that's not to be judged, because it's usually trying to quiet a trauma. And I don't mean a single event trauma. Again, that's a whole different training for another day if we want to talk about those things. But I want to bring the compassion into the conversation, because sometimes people who tend to be mobile sports betting more than others will usually be men of money, younger men. And in our society, we haven't allowed men to have feelings. I don't know why, but men have feelings, men have lives, men have trauma, but they're not allowed to talk about it. They're not allowed to deal with it. And so they will drink, drug, and gamble it away and self-destruct. What's great about the younger generation, for those of you that work with the Gen Zs, is they talk mental health. Bless them. They're so much more open than we ever were. And that is a gift and a blessing, because then we can nip some of this stuff in the bud. So that's kind of a crosscut to all of this, but it's something that I felt was important to include, because sometimes we forget that young men, even privileged young men in sports, are vulnerable. They're just vulnerable for different reasons. And we need to keep that in mind. So some of the traits that have been known to be associated with falling into addictive patterns, of course, being impulsive, struggling with anxiety, being outside the social circle, can't handle stress, the sensation-seeking guilty. I like those high extreme sports. So to get that rush, blame shifting, no, it wasn't me. So that's when we can fall into those patterns more easily than not. So take all of that into play. And let's go back into in-play sports betting and connect how that vulnerability is for our young people. The illusion of control in in-play sports betting is so strong, because put yourself in this person's position. The gambler can't decide the speed at which they're betting, the amount of money they're betting, and the frequency of their bets. That's a lot of apparent control. But when you're in a short-term dopamine chasing cycle, who's chasing what? Who's chasing what? And one of the largest cognitive distortions when it comes to in-play sports betting, and what the product of the mobile sports app presents us, is an expectancy of winning, a false sense that you expect success. When you gamble, you know who wins? The operator. That's who wins. They can expect success based on our impulsive decisions, like they know what they're doing. Fair enough. Business is business. This isn't slamming anyone, but it's understanding, always understand the pool you're getting in. Understand the people you're playing with. Understand the rules of engagement and what you're getting involved in. And quite often with the risk factors of in-play wagering, it's back again. And I warned you I'd be repetitive about this, folks. The high speed and continuous reinforcement, the microbursts of dopamine that are attached to the micro bets. It's so similar to the dopamine hit of the likes, the likes, the likes. You post something, did they like it? Who liked it? Or did they make a comment? And the neurobiology controls us more than most of us would like to think. The older we get, we can get those executive functions in order, but young people are at a higher risk because those parts just aren't there. You can't blame someone for being able to get from point A to point B if the bridge isn't built yet. You can't blame them. If the bridge isn't built yet, the bridge isn't built yet. And we need to understand that and treat that with care and compassion. There's no time to reflect. It's so fast paced. It's when you play a sport, regardless of the sport, whether you're a soccer person or a baseball person or a hockey person, football, whatever the sport is, tennis, take your pick. The ability to read and react is key to be able to be really good at what you do and at your position, whether you're forward, striker, your halfback, or defenseman, your goalie, whatever. But you need time to make good decisions when money's involved and betting's involved. So they're playing on that fine line of what you do as an athlete versus what you can do when you're sports betting. And the marketing, I don't know how things are in your state, but the amount of constant advertising, the commentators now talk about the money line, the bet line, the puck line. It is constant, it is immersive. And the point about isolation is, even though you're in a group, and most of us know this, you can be in a group, but still feel isolated because of your engagement with your activity with your phone. You could be the only one sports betting in a group of people that are not, and you can't really tell other people. And for those of us that are emotionally connected to our teams, we all know how that feels when we kind of put some money on it and get involved in it. So that's the large part on the in-play sports betting. Now let's talk early cash out. The older folks in the crowd, our buddy Howie here, deal or no deal. Absolutely same premise. If you don't remember the TV show, go to YouTube, go check out a couple of episodes. It's hilarious. So cash out. You cash out early to mitigate your losses, or you cash out early to maintain a win. Maybe not as big of a win, but you're still maintaining a win. So Betfair, cash out, lets you take profit early if your bet is coming in, or get some of your stake back if your bet is going against you, all before the event you're betting on is over. Cash out offers are made in real time on your current bets based on live market prices. I should have highlighted the words stake and profit. I'll do that when I clean up the presentation. So if anybody in this room does any day trading at all, if anybody has any experience in the market, commodities, ventures, whatnot, penny stocks, the language is the same, and language matters. So now we've moved to gambling. The thinking is from gambling to investing. The thinking from skill-based gambling to skillful money management. You know that you're dealing with some pretty significant cognitive distortions when people are feeding this back to you and believing their own story. That's when we move to, then we start taking a look at some other supports, and there's usually some other things going on if that's where we're at. So how do adolescents, bless their souls, find their way? How does this happen? Social casino games are everywhere. Online, you can't escape them. They're everywhere. No, you're not paying any money on it. In another presentation I did, I think the stat was either 93 or 97% of 12-year-olds had already played and experienced social casino games. I'd have to go dig that up. Today's world, the constant exposure, it's normalized. It's there. I was at a hockey game in Seattle, and it was sponsored by one of the operators in somewhere in the community. And on the screens, they were using a slot mechanic to play a game with the crowd. Well, hockey games aren't 21 plus, 18 plus, or 19 plus. So the exposure is constant. The availability and supply is endless. Of course, it's positive and fun. It never ends. Today's world, those of you that have kids, those of you that game yourself, know that in-game purchasing has been normalized. Doesn't matter if you're playing Candy Crush, Fortnite, Overwatch, GTA, Call of Duty, doesn't matter. This is now the norm. The older folks in the crowd were going to be like, we used to buy a game, put the game in, and grind it till the end before the internet. Horrifying to the younger people in the crowd. So that's, and I mean, I'm old, but I'm not that old. And that's a massive generational shift. And those are the things that carry on into adulthood. So when you have some young folks that are big on their loot boxes and skins gambling and go to third-party sites and start doing the trading there, and you've got a lot of that going on, the risk to fall prey into the sports betting apps is way, way bigger. Going to take a little water break, and we're going to dive into prevention. Well, now that I've painted doom and gloom, well, it's not doom and gloom, but I've certainly pointed out that there is a minefield to navigate in the modern world with our young people. So what are we going to do? How are we going to go about this? And for those of us that have been in prevention for a long time, we're very well aware that we're the first program to be cut because it's hard to provide quantitative data within an election cycle. Prevention is a long game, and it's a hard game to pitch. So when you take a look across the board, and you're taking a look at the spectrum of interventions for people, we're going to focus on promotion and prevention. When things get to the point where they're a little bit more serious, then we start taking a look at treatment and how do we maintain after we've maybe made some recovery outside of those addictive behaviors. So prevention, what's the point? Why bother? Well, there's a few key points with prevention, and these are big picture. This is macro stuff. So for those of you that were around in the tobacco days when everybody can smoke, chain smoke in the grocery store, and now it's like, oh my God, you're smoking. So we've been around a long time. So what's the goals of the prevention? The first one is stop before it starts. Probably better never to smoke than to smoke. So that's the first goal, is let's just put a stop to it before it starts. If it's going to start, let's delay this as long as we can. If you're going to start smoking, do it at 25. Don't do it at 12. You know, this is someone who started smoking at 12 and quit at 35. So I can kind of get where this goes. If you're going to engage in the behavior, so how do we reduce the negative impact? How do we mitigate that? How do we encourage a more holistic, balanced life? How do we reduce our negatives and up our positives, right? That's always the little scale, the little balance with prevention. And then we take a look at our community health, our politicians, and we need the macro support. So this cross cuts across the board. So for our side of things, where we sit, prevention sits with individuals, with small groups, with large populations. Large population, whole population, whether you're sports betting or not, you need to know about it. You need to be informed about it because somebody in your life is. We need to make sure that people are aware of what it is, how it works, and how we keep ourselves safe. For those that are at risk, we really need to target down with them and get a little bit more personal, get a little closer, and make sure that we get involved, especially if we're seeing some early warning signs that are coming along. So some of those examples, individual, small group, population, and I'll have larger examples at the end of the presentation, but public awareness campaign, understanding tech, understanding the resources that are available, get into the schools, get into the universities, connect with the sports teams, connect with the coaches, It's so important because the players are probably some of the higher risk people in addition to the people betting on the players. And again, that would be booster two. That's a whole other conversation. And taking a look at people that are already afflicted with an addiction to begin with, let's not add on with crossing. More people quit drinking and drugs and switch to gaming and gambling. It is so common. It is so common. So how do we put some steps in there to try and prevent that from happening? Well, you and I know, if we've been in prevention a long time, that we're climbing Mount Everest in flip-flops, right? We're doing K2 in the ice in some dollar store flip-flops. So how are we going to try and deal with these challenges? Well, one of the biggest challenges that we have is that convergence between gaming and gambling as a consumer and in the research, because this is so new. You and I know academia takes time, right? It takes time to catch up to this and to get the studies that can get to the regulators to be able to put the laws in. Like, this is a long game. It's a long game. There's harm, excessive involvement in anything. Blurred boundaries is what gets us into trouble all the time. No delayed gratification gets me into trouble, so I don't see how it doesn't get other people into trouble. Like, just quick comment on delayed gratification. Any of you ever plan a holiday? Okay, next August in 2023, we're going to do a 4-week tour of Europe, and you spend 12 months and you're researching and you're looking for tickets and looking for spots to go and looking for activities, and you go to bed and you dream about it and you wake up and you think about it, but you don't actually get to do it for a year, but you get to live the joy and the bliss of thinking about it the whole time. Current generations don't. Everything's now. They're totally ripped off. It's tragic. You know, gaming's been gamblified, gambling's been gamified. Put a 5-year-old's iPad game next to a modern slot machine, and I've had people not be able to tell the difference on the screen. Only people who knew the game that I put were able to tell the difference. That's frightening. Crypto, a whole other day on crypto. We can spend a whole other day on crypto and NFTs and how they play in to the sports betting world. And loot boxes is gambling, as plain as the nose on our faces. So prevention, you know, I know, requires time, multiple strategies, multiple domains. It's the long game. It takes partnerships. We've got to come at it from every angle. It's like the pie. We got to start chewing on the pie from all around to be able to get at it. At every level, individual, peer, family, school, community. What alternatives do we have? Where are our policies? Where's our community? Where's our community partnerships? How are we rating and judging the quality of information that's coming along, right? What's accurate, what's not accurate? We've certainly learned in the past 5 to 10 years around information, misinformation, and now it's not about getting information. Once we get information, now it's about checking the validity of that information. So that's a lot of pressure. These risk factors, very much associated to the traits we looked at before that make us vulnerable to fall into all kinds of addictive behaviors. And why would sports betting be any different? But there's protective factors. Oddly enough, it was really neat when I looked into this. Being a female is a protective factor. Yay, ladies. It's not that ladies don't bet on sports, but I guess more men do than women. And just as a factor, being female is a protective factor. So that's refreshing for a change, because usually it's not a protective factor in life to be a female. Being resilient, having a positive outlook, being upbeat, having some smarts, right? Yeah, having some smarts. And sometimes people are vulnerable. We can have brain injury, we can have intellectual deficiencies. That doesn't make people bad. It just changes something from a risk factor. Where is it a risk or protective factor? If you're doing well in school, you don't want to blow it because you might have a scholarship and you really want to go and follow whatever career you're passionate around, and you're not ready to blow it. Community and family factors Honest to goodness, relationship, 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 relationship. Relationship with your family, with your friends, everyone around you. Do you have healthy, positive relationships with the people in your lives? Do you have clear, consistent boundaries? Nothing makes anybody safer than a clear, consistent boundary. Anybody who has dogs, you know how no one ever trains the little dog and they bark at everyone and but then the big dog has to be trained because the big dog is scary. Well, but isn't the big dog calmer and more relaxed because it has good boundaries and it knows when to sit stay? Like, so it's around things like that boundaries are a good thing. Boundaries are respectful, boundaries bring security, boundaries are based in love. So what in the world are we going to do? What options do we have on deck? Well, that depends where you are and what kind of supports you have. Public awareness campaigns. I'm going to show you an example in the next little bit of our friends in the UK. Absolutely brilliant ads on taking a lighthearted approach to keeping people safe with sports betting. Partnerships, partnerships, partnerships. In life, if you want to go far, go alone. Sorry, that's wrong. Correction. I'm going to do that back. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So your efforts will stick more if you have more stakeholder engagement and everyone's a part of this. Write your public official, get involved in public health policy, have your voice heard. It's squeaky wheel, folks, like it or not. That's the way the world works. Let's get the academics on board. There's tons of data that can come up. So let's bring academia to support us. Let's get into education and awareness. What about the online self-exclusion opportunities? Some apps are better than others, like anything else in life. Some cost money, some don't. Some are more effective, some aren't. It's very personalized. What are responsible gambling best practices? Is that evolving now that we have the online scene? Is that evolving because of the in-play and cash-out features? How does that get engaged? Lunch and learns, professional development, in-service, things like this. Talk to people, host a conversation. Go to a school, get a youth group, bring some pizza and some nachos and some pop. Sit around, ask the kids what they think. It's amazing how much they have to share, and free food never hurts. I'm a real fan of trying to get groups at the school and tacking on with the school counselor. Universities are a little bit tougher, but I'll let you know how that goes because I'm targeting some hockey teams for the fall because I'm all over this. Let's get some literature out. Let's get some information out, obviously online, in print, sing, dance, whatever it takes. Get, radio, TV, social media, huge, the right social media. No 16-year-olds looking at Facebook, but maybe we need to make a bunch of TikTok videos. And maybe we need to put some TikTok challenges out there to our young folks with a bit of a prize around who can give us the best tap out, bet regret ad. And you're going to see, I'm going to bring it to you in a second. Nothing says love like peer-to-peer support, my friends. Nothing says love like peer-to-peer support. It's important. So in a nutshell, let's take a look. Illusion of control. Big skill versus luck. Lots of conversation here. The speed of play is insane because of the in-play betting. That FOMO piece socially, that FOMO piece financially. I'm a JOMO gal, joy of missing out, but I live in the Pacific Northwest. I have forests and I'm a different duck. But find your joy of missing out is my challenge with the young folks, because then when you want to stand above the crowd and stand on your own, it feels good when you do it. The scarcity principle. My God, act now, act fast. We're running out. You have 4.2 minutes to stop. It never ends. Obviously, marketing and the near miss is the industry's bread and butter. So this applies to you, this applies to them, this applies to all of us. What are the 5 E's of why people play games or gamble? Obviously, it's fun, it's entertaining, It's exciting. Even listen to me talk, my voice kind of went up. I got all excited. Would I rather do that or deal with my problems in life? Bit of a no-brainer, right? Money. Who doesn't want money? I'd like to make a profit on this. That would be nice. And my pride, my ego, my goodness. I want to be like, da bragging rights, pretty common at any age, especially the younger ones. What's the perfect storm for our poor kids? What are those 5 A's? Age, where's the frontal lobe? Nowhere to be found. Availability, where can you not find online sports betting? Acceptability, you get the feeling everyone's doing it. I'll tell you, everyone's not doing it. But it's become more and more accepted because it's so common. The advertising promoted, glamorized, access, cash, right? Because now we're in a credit world, so that is all over it. So I'm going to close in this final minute. I'm going to show you 2 commercials and then just a few local resources, and that'll be it. So we've got about a minute to go, and we're going to make that go away. So there's my hour. Get ready for a good giggle, folks. This is from our friends at Gamble Aware in the UK, and it's the Tap Out, Take a Moment, Avoid Bet Regret campaign. Are you ready? This is really funny. Okay.
Hurry up.
It's tap out time. Tap out the app, Barry! Oh, you chasing losses again? That dog's got more chance of catching its tail. Think before you bet.
I've done it! I've tapped out!
This season, tap out, take a moment, avoid bet regret.
I can't help myself. They're brilliant. Here's another one.
It's tap out time. Yeah! Tap out the app, Dave! Do you even know anything about Ukrainian football?
Oh no!
Think before you bet.
I've tapped out! I've tapped out!
This season, tap out, take a moment, avoid bet regret.
So I shared those with you to provide a bit of information, obviously, but inspiration that we can get the message across without being judgy or finger pointing or doing things like that, that we can be fairly lighthearted in how we share the message. Now, to close, I've got some resources that I was able to find that are specific to New York. You have amazing resources, by the way. I'm very impressed. I had mentioned that before. So Be Gamble Aware at the bottom, that's where we got those commercials with their permission. But I believe the other resources are specific to New York. And give yourselves a pat on the back. You're well looked after. You have fantastic resources and a really good team of people that support you. So thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate it. And from coast to coast, I'm wishing you all the best.
Thank you very much, Karen. I think this presentation was amazing. I love the ending with those videos. Those are hysterical. And I agree, it's a great way to approach prevention and just spreading the word. I think there's positive ways to really get people involved and interested. So again, thank you so much. This has been an amazing presentation. And I believe strongly that people are going to walk away from this with some really strong knowledge and excitement to talk about this topic. So thank you.
Thanks for the invite, Stelianos. I super appreciate it.